Well, here we are at night number one of our online holiday Bible club. And each night we're going to look at the life of a hero from Hebrews chapter 11, which is also known as the Faith Hall of Fame. And hopefully by the end of the week, we're going to see something that all of these heroes had in common. But we kick things off tonight by looking at Noah. And I'm sure lots of you have heard that name before. In fact, when you think about Noah, well, you probably immediately think about animals. So before we think about our Bible passage for tonight, well, let me ask you a question. And I'll give you a minute to have a think about what your answer is once I've asked the question. But here's the question. What do you think the top 5 deadliest creatures are in the world? What do you think are the top 5 deadliest creatures in the world? I'm going to give you 60 seconds to make your list and we'll see how many you can guess. Ready? Your time starts now. Okay, you might have found that really hard, but let's go through the answers and see what they are. These answers are based on a book that I read a couple of years ago, but I think they're still the same today. So at number 5, the 5th deadliest creature in the world is a poison dart frog. And I'll let you have a point if you look frog, but it looks like this. At number 4, we actually have human beings. At number 3, we have the shark, especially the great white shark that looks like this. At number 2, we have the Cape buffalo. And in number 1 is the mosquito. It's tiny, but it's deadly. I wonder, did any of those answers surprise you? I imagine, just like me, that you were surprised to see human beings on the list. However, when you think about it, maybe we shouldn't be surprised by that at all. Sadly, humans are capable of doing some bad things. Why? Well, because we have this real problem when it comes to sin. And we see that when we look at the life of Noah. We're going to read from Genesis chapter 6 and see a little bit more about Noah and the times that he lived in. So I'm going to read from Genesis 6 verses 5 to 13 and then 17 to 22. Now the Lord observed the extent of the people's wickedness, and he saw that all their thoughts were consistently and totally evil. So the Lord was sorry that he ever made them. It broke his heart. And the Lord said, I will completely wipe out this human race that I have created. Yes, and I will destroy all the animals and birds too. I'm sorry that I ever made them. But Noah found favor with the Lord. This is the history of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless man living on the earth at the time. He consistently followed God's will and enjoyed a close relationship with him. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth had become corrupt in God's sight, and it was filled with violence. God observed all this corruption in the world, and he saw violence and depravity everywhere. So God said to Noah, I've decided to destroy all living creatures, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I will wipe them all from the face of the earth. Then God gives Noah instructions to build a boat, and we pick up in verse 17. He says, Look, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing. Everything on earth will die. But I solemnly swear to keep you safe in the boat with your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of each kind of bird and each kind of animal, large and small alike, will come to you to be kept alive. And remember, take enough food for your family and for all the animals. And here's the important verse, verse 22. So Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him. Hands up if you used to like or if you still like playing with Play-Doh. Yeah, I can see lots of hands. I'll be honest, I still like making stuff out of Play-Doh if I'm given the chance. And the best thing about Play-Doh is that if you're unhappy with what you've made, well, you can squeeze it all back together and start again. Now, I've tried to make a little bit of a palm tree because we can't go away on sunny holidays this year, so I thought I would build myself a little palm tree and feel like I'm somewhere sunny. But yeah, if you don't like what you've done, well, you can just squish it up into a ball and you can start again from scratch. And that's kind of what we see in Genesis chapter 6. This is what God has decided he would do. But why? Well, we're told that during Noah's generation, the wickedness and the evil of man had covered the earth. So God had to do something about this sin and this evil. And so his plan was this: he would restart humanity. But he wouldn't get rid of everything and everyone. No, God had a plan, and his plan involved Noah and his family. God told Noah that there was a flood coming that would destroy the earth, but that he was going to keep Noah and his family safe, as well as two of every animal. That way, when the flood was over, well, God could make a fresh start on the earth. Just like an instruction manual, God told Noah exactly how he should build a huge boat called an ark, and that would keep his family and the animals safe. What did Noah do? Well, verse 22 tells us this. He did everything just as God had commanded. Noah honored God when everyone else chose to ignore him. Noah stood firm even when he undoubtedly faced extreme ridicule. Noah kept trusting God. He didn't give up. How was he able to stand so strong? Well, the answer is that he lived his life for God instead of himself. Over and over again, in the story of Noah, we read that Noah did everything just as God had commanded. His life of 950 years, that's super old. Well, it demonstrates it, Noah's obedience. He listened to God and he did what he said. When Noah's first mentioned in the Bible, he's already 500 years old, so he's not really very young. And the task that God called him to, well, it wasn't an easy task. It isn't like Noah could just go somewhere like IKEA and get himself a flat pack boat that would be built in a few weeks. This was going to take him a long time. In fact, it probably took him almost 100 years. And that meant that Noah would have faced ridicule, teasing, and laughter for 100 years as he built the ark. Noah was super patient. But even after it was built, well, he then had to spend 370 days on board the ark. Imagine the storms that the ark would face, the sounds and the smells they would have to endure, the feeling of being locked in somewhere with no escape. It must have been really difficult, but Noah didn't give up. When you think about it, well, Noah was a pretty impressive guy. He was a righteous man. He was blameless among the people of his time. He wasn't perfect or sinless, but he loved God with his whole heart, and he did his best to obey him at all times. But Noah isn't the point of the story. We are meant to be really impressed by Noah. No, this story, well, it's meant to point us forward to Jesus, the one who perfectly obeyed God, the one who came to save us from our sin. You see, the bad news is that all of us, just like the people in Genesis 6, well, we do bad things. Sin is in all of our lives, and so we often say nasty things. We think bad thoughts, we hurt other people, we act selfishly, we ignore God. Sin is a problem for every one of us. But just like God used Noah for a fresh start on the earth, well, God sent Jesus so that we could have a fresh start with life. Jesus came to go to the cross in our place. By his death and resurrection, sin and death is dealt with once and for all, so that when we put our trust in Jesus, well, we're given a fresh start. More than that, though, we're also given the gift of God's Holy Spirit, and he will guide us and instruct us so that we can live for God and make the most of our lives every day. We see that when we read Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6, which I'll read for us as we finish up tonight. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all that you do, and he will show you which path to take. Do you want life at its best? Do you need forgiveness for your sin? Well, look to Jesus. Put your trust in him. Do as he commands, and you will know hope and joy that will last forever.